Real quickly before I begin, join my Discord, the link's in the description. Enjoy the video. If you're over rank 5, there's almost a 100% chance that you'll have set foot on Metro at least once, and for good reason. Metro is the second most popular map in Phantom Forces, trailing only Desert Storm in its voting metrics, but to an outsider, it can be quite difficult to see how a map where each team desperately tries to avoid getting spawn camped by the other for the entire game could possibly reach this point. And I'll say this as someone who plays a lot of Metro. This map is very flawed, and there isn't much that can be done to fix it, but despite this, there's a great deal of fun to be had on this map. And in this video, I'll show you guys just how you can abuse it yourself, so you can hopefully understand why this god-awful map is so popular. Metro's layout is extremely simple. Phantoms spawn on one end of the map, while Ghosts spawn on the other. Unlike Desert Storm, where quite literally the entire map is fair game for at least one team, Metro's spawns are very well defined and easy to understand, which is part of the reason why it's so popular. It's so beautifully simple that even a rank 50 player could get a general idea of the spawns on this map within their first 10 or so games on it, and if that wasn't enough, there's even colored lines on the walls to tell you what part of the map you're on, and these will make it much easier for me to explain the strategies for this map. If it's yellow, you're in the ghost spawn. If it's red, you're in this room with the crate. If it's purple, you're in this room near the A point and will most likely die within the next 3 seconds. If it's green, you're in the phantom spawn. And that's all the basic things you need to know about Metro's layout. This all sounds simple enough, and it absolutely is, but that's also why Metro is by far the most well understood map in the entire game. High-ranked players have dissected this map's design for well over 8 years, and because of that, there are a huge number of tricks and strategies regarding this map that most players have no clue about. And in order to understand all of them, you'll need to know the basic strategies of this map first. And for this, I've enlisted the help of one of PF's best Metro players to tell you everything you need to know about this map. Take it away.
Alright, so Metro has been in the game for a really long time by now, and despite that, there's still a massive proportion of the player base that has no idea how to play it. So, I'm going to give you a quick guide on how to play it in the most efficient way possible. First off, your goal will be to leave your spawn as quickly as possible, since you have absolutely no reason to stay in it. Pushing deeper in your own spawn is probably the worst possible way to play, as there is a very limited amount of enemies to kill, no objective to capture or protect, and your opponents usually have the upper hand on you. There is typically 2 ways of leaving your spawn, the first one being the squad deploy button. So, you're going to want to look in the list which one of your teammate is the closest to the action or the enemy spawn and deploy on him. You should always prioritize doing this as it gets you out of spawn instantly and saves a huge amount of time you'd be spending traveling the map to get to the enemy spawn. The second way of leaving your spawn, if squad deploying isn't an option at the moment, is to deploy in your own spawn and leave it as soon as possible, using one of the 2 tunnels that links Phantom and Ghost spawns. These tunnels are probably the best paths you can take, as they're some of the least populated parts of the map, as well as being the quickest way to get to the enemy spawn, regardless of which side you are on. As a side note, I'd also like to add that you should always never be killing people in your own spawn unless you want to get frustrated and waste your own time. I know you probably really want to kill that guy that just killed you, but doing that is only going to be detrimental to both of you. So you should probably just leave your ego aside and go on with your day. So now that you've left your spawn, you're going to start doing 2 things, wandering and defending. The point of wandering will be to locate the place where people are currently and push these locations. The best way to find people is going to be pushing the enemy spawn, since most players barely even try to leave it. To help you in your quest of mastering Metro, I made a quick map that displays every spawn point for both teams so you don't have to learn it all by yourself. All of these dots are the places where you mainly want to check out for people, and you can pause this video at any given time to analyze the spawns. Now that you know where people spawn, you're going to have to go from spawn point to maximize your chances of finding people to kill. A good way of knowing where your enemies are currently is by using your team. So you want to pay attention to where your teammates are currently at. If you hear them fighting, that very most likely means that there are enemies to go kill there. And if you don't hear them fighting, push a spawn point that is at the opposite of them so you can maximize your chances of finding people. Lastly, you're going to have to do a lot of protecting. Not as in protecting your own spawn, which would be completely counterproductive, but more like locking down certain choke points that provide cover so you can take space and have the advantage. Some of the best spots you can use to do this when you're playing against phantoms are purple, sidebox, trains, the stands on phantom side, and escalators. On the other end, if you're playing against ghost, The best spots are the stands on Ghost side, red, trains, pillars, and escalators, especially the Paradox one. All of these spots are extremely good as they give you a massive advantage in terms of cover and visibility. That means you can use them as head glitches or ways to be relatively safe when reloading or throwing grenades. I'd also like to add that you shouldn't hesitate to rotate when you feel like you're getting overwhelmed or when people start to spawn somewhere else. You can simply switch to another spot or go back to running around the map. To conclude this segment of the video, I'd like to address this to some of you guys that might dislike Metro. So, there are valid reasons to antagonize this map, such as people that snipe in their own spawn, blatant targeting, or the fact that you automatically get revenge spawned if you dare to play the map in a fun way. But if your problem with this map resonates with a hate of better player that can be easily avoided, or the spawns that compared to popular belief can be somewhat easily escaped, I'm sorry to break it down to you, but you might be doing something wrong. So go out there, learn the map, and most importantly, have fun.
I'll leave a link to BOCOT's YouTube channel in the title of the video if you want to see some of his insane Metro gameplay. He's honestly way more skilled at the game than I am, so I'd appreciate it if you showed him some support. Anyways, let's get into some of the sillier strategies for this map, now that you're enlightened on the basic elements. The first trick I'd like to show you guys is with these kiosks here. Now, most of you guys already know that you can super jump onto these to gain an insane height advantage. You can see so many parts of the map from on top of these kiosks, and that's very important on Metro. But what you might not know is that you can just regular jump onto these like this, and it's pretty easy. However, the problem is if you try to sprint into these, and then you try to jump onto it, you'll just end up vaulting through it and you'll die in a very stupid way. So in order to avoid that, you're going to want to EMP jump onto these. And if you don't know how to EMP slide, well, you're not alone. I only just learned how to EMP slide. Just like that. You can also do the same thing with this crate or this building over here, but it's a bit harder. Just like that, and just like that. Most of the walls on Metro are actually surprisingly thin, and you can shoot through them with something with as little as like 1.5 studs of penetration. This wall in purple here is one of my favorites because you can easily blast someone who's coming through there, which is extremely important for later on in this video, where I'm going to be talking about the downsides of Metro. Another one of my favorite spots is this wall here, because if you come around here, you'll notice that these bullets are actually going through this giant wall here, which means that you can hit someone who's head glitching on this kiosk here, which is very important no matter what team you're on. As a ghost, it is a very, very bad idea to enter purple through this doorway or through this one, because you can be shot at from 3 different angles, which is basically a guaranteed death. So what you're going to want to do is bolt it through enemy sniper fire right here, pray you don't get shot, and then you have to flank through this tunnel. Alternatively, you can go all the way around here, and then enter green through this hallway right here, and that's how you can get into purple without having basically a 100% chance of dying. This next tip is a little subjective, but I think it's very important. Turn your music down. I know most of you like to play Phantom Forces while blasting the worst music ever composed by mankind through your headphones, and yes, there are scientific studies that prove that you perform better when listening to music, but audio cues are incredibly important on a map like this, and being able to hear people coming up the escalators is far more essential than any kind of performance boost from your music. There are maps like Desert Storm and Warehouse where being able to hear your surroundings isn't super essential. That's when it's more appropriate to have your music turned all the way up. Side note, this tip also applies to Mirage, not because audio is more important than on any other map, but because Mirage players are so unbelievably stupid that being able to hear your surroundings gives you an absolutely crushing advantage over everyone else on that map. But anyways, turn your music down and listen for enemy footsteps. It's so much easier to tell where enemies are spawning just by doing this. You're welcome. As BOCOT said in his segment, the spawns on Metro aren't that hard to escape. Just go through one of the tunnels and you're in the enemy spawn in 15 seconds. Seems easy enough, and it is. The spawns aren't actually as much of a problem as people say they are. It flows amazingly well, has a ton of strategic depth, and you don't really have to spend half the game running from one point to another. However, there are still a ton of issues that prevent Metro from being placed as high as actually somewhat well-designed maps such as Desert Storm. The first issue I have is that the teams aren't well balanced at all. The ghost spawn on this map is like 3 times the size of the phantom spawn, which comes with a ton of pros and cons for both sides. If you're playing as a ghost, getting 100 kill games is extremely consistent. There's only 4 escalators in the phantom spawn, and it's easy enough to rotate between each one. When they stop spawning, you know they've started spawning near the C point and that you should be headed there. However, if you're playing on Phantoms, it's a completely different story. You either drop 130 kills or fail to even break 100. There's no in between. And it's not like it's very difficult to find people here. Go down any escalator and assuming you don't die instantly, you can easily see at least 1 or 2 enemies somewhere in this room. The problem is they're usually super far away, and since it's Metro, you probably aren't using a sniper, so these enemies are essentially out of reach. But what if you're not trying to drop a 100 kill game? Well, first off, why the hell are you even playing this map? But anyways, Phantoms actually have a pretty significant advantage here. It's much easier to escape spawn as a Phantom. Hell, the game might even spawn you near the escalators and you have a free ticket to the central area of the map, which is part of the reason why Phantoms can far more easily control most parts of Metro. Sure, it's hard to find enemies if you're directly in the ghost spawn, but if your team has a chokehold on the entire rest of the map, it is going to be very hard for the ghost to retake it. Not to mention, Phantoms have a massive advantage when it comes to controlling purple, which leads me to my next point. Purple is one of, if not the most important part of this map, and has direct pathways to so many other important areas as well. However, this makes it incredibly frustrating to deal with at times, especially as a ghost. Like I said, the doorways from red and from the central area of Metro are never a good idea to go into as a ghost and only ever serve as a way for the Phantoms to leave purple, rather than a way for the ghost to enter it. But let's say you somehow manage to clear all 3 sightlines that directly stare down those doorways. You think it's safe to enter this room? The entire Phantoms team is still pouring in through both of the green doorways, so you still have to just stand here and shoot this wall, praying that your gun has enough penetration to go through it, and that your bullets are actually hitting the enemies behind it. That's another huge problem, by the way. The walls on Metro are super thin, and it's such a pain to deal with people who actually know how to abuse this. Alright, they've stopped pushing. Can you finally push? Nope! Now they're spamming grenades at this room, and if even one blows out while someone is anywhere in the room, then it's lights out for them. So now you have to keep shooting this wall in case any more Phantoms are pushing, all the while having to check for enemies entering through the center, through red, or by taking the stairs. Only when the grenades have stopped for a long enough time for your team to finally clear out the green hallway, which thankfully isn't nearly as difficult as getting there, do you, as a ghost, finally get to control purple. This is a painstaking process, but it's extremely important no matter what you're trying to do in the game. Playing the objective, the A point is right there. Going for kills, the green hallway is right there. It's thankfully a lot easier if you flank, but you still have to deal with grenades, as well as the added risk of getting folded by snipers when you're out there in the open trying to get into this doorway. And actually, while we're here, can we talk about grenades? My god, these stupid things are always a pain to deal with, to the point where I'm probably going to make a whole video ranting about them, but grenades are a massive issue on Metro to the point where it massively worsens the gameplay experience. It's one thing if you're head glitching on one of the kiosks and someone throws a grenade there, that's perfectly fine and it's a valid use for grenades, to flush enemies out from cover and to punish them for camping in one spot. But people spam grenades everywhere on this map, and it's so damn annoying. We've talked about purple already, but there's also the C point escalators, and that's where the grenade spam is arguably even more ridiculous. Like I said, I'll rant about grenades in their own video because I'm getting a bit too mad right now. But those are just a few of my issues with this map, and they can't really be fixed without changing a completely separate part of the game, or by messing with Metro's layout to the point where it's unrecognizable. Thankfully, we don't always have to put up with these issues because these days there are a bunch of other maps with high kill potential that can be just as good, if not a little better than Metro. Just to name a few, you have Bazaar, Crane Site, Elevation, Penthouse, Ruins, and Suburbia. So why, with all of these great options available, do we keep coming back to Metro? In my opinion, it has less to do with the kill potential of the map, and more to do with the fact that we're just used to it. We're used to all of the good and bad parts of this map. Metro has been in the game for 8 years, and we've had so much time to refine the strategies for it that it's harder to play anything else. Are there better maps in rotation? Absolutely, but who wants to take time studying them when we can just destroy Metro servers instead? It's the same story with Desert Storm and Warehouse, so honestly I can't stand either of those maps for reasons I've discussed in their own dedicated videos. However, if you're a new player, you haven't been sucked into the Metro rabbit hole yet, so I think it's worth your time to learn how to play the other maps. After all, Nobody with an IQ above room temperature plays on Ruins, which is why it's so much easier to get a high KDR there than it is on Metro. Getting a feel for many different maps is important, especially if you want to avoid the high ranks that tend to hang around Metro. But as much as I want to hate this map, I admit that I occasionally still enjoy playing it. Metro flows so incredibly well that it kind of offsets a lot of the bad parts of this map, and sometimes I welcome the challenge of facing off against another high rank. Another mark in this map's favor is that with the way it's designed, two rank 300s can drop a 100 kill game in the same server without ever once engaging with each other in combat. So yeah, I don't completely despise Metro because as bad as it can be, there's at least 15 other maps that are even worse than this. Do you think Metro's a good map? Let me know all your thoughts on it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.